Bear market is great for DeFi in terms of product building, and we're also able to see which teams are here for the long haul.
The amount of people using DeFi is less than 0.5% of centralized exchange users. The actual prize is way bigger out there.
There is now this movement to propel DeFi forward again on Solana. So there's a lot more collaboration, and we want DeFi summer again.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Next Billion podcast, where we're talking to the builders, the entrepreneurs, the people that are making the crypto ecosystem tick, building really cool things. And I'm joined today with Harm from GooseFX. And the Goose crew have been awesome. They've been in our replies at Step for a long time now, but also, yeah, really happy to see the growth that you guys have got. And we're going to be talking about derivatives and all sorts of different DeFi specific things and what's been going on. So Harm, look, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, happy to be here. And thanks for extending the invitation.
Of course. We got to talk to all of the chads on Solana, especially DeFi with things heating up. But we'll get to that in a moment. But tell us a little bit about Goose. So what do you guys do? How did you come to be? What's been the builder's journey thus far for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Goose was actually started out of a hackathon, Solana hackathon that occurred
this is a common
like 2
theme.
years ago.
A lot of people start this way, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was during the midst of the pandemic. I think a lot of people on the team just wanted, something to do. We all had recently either heard about Solana or had been following it for some time. And then we thought this was a great opportunity to involve ourselves. So we met, during the hackathon, started the team via Discord. And then shortly after forming the team, we actually did get some interest from VCs, et cetera. So we all decided to go full time at that time. So we've been building for a little bit over 2 years at this time.
Wow. Oh, geez. Man, there's so many conversations I have with people about starting things at hacker houses or due to a hackathon or something like that. I think clearly that's where Solana's done really well. I mean, what's been your experience with the hackathon process or the hacker houses in general? What do you think there? Is this a valuable sort of thing for the ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So I've been to quite a few of the hacker houses, especially during that first and second year. I actually found it very valuable. It was a great way to connect with different teams, especially early on. I was able to meet like a Lettercaster team that now are doing BuddyLink, bunch of other teams from Tulip, Radium, Pith, etc. So made a lot of great friends going to the events. Also was a great way to collaborate with other teams to hash some things out, see if there's any opportunities for integrations, collaborations, etc. It was also great to meet a lot of the Solana core devs. So I had the chance to meet, Anatoly, Raj, ask them some questions. That's always great as well. Just being able to have a personal chat with the entire ecosystem. So overall was really great for our team. We learned a lot. We, were able to make great friends, and it did lead to some integration / business partnerships as well. So all around was really great for us. And I think other teams would probably have similar thoughts. And overall, I think it was a great way for the project itself, like Solana, to actually reach out to a lot of devs, also get a lot of attention from Web2 devs that maybe had some free time or were blockchain curious and just wanted to see if they could contribute in any way. So overall, I think it was a great way to entice devs and get people building.
Yeah, I think it is too. And, I think it's also a unique thing for the Sol ecosystem is this concept of hacker houses and all of these hackathons. And it's clearly been a way that a lot of teams have started, right? And if anyone's out there, definitely have a look at, solana.com/events, I think is where it's at. And you can go and look if there's one nearby in your city sometime soon. There usually is, but also Breakpoint later this year, but we'll get into that. But look, let's talk about DeFi, right? And DeFi is my focus for doing on-chain stuff. I think financial things is what blockchains and crypto are designed for and built for. I mean, that's what it's been for over a decade now. It's financial things, and that could be many different areas. But I think the rise of DeFi has brought not just, Bitcoin started as the store of value, right? And it didn't start that way, but it sort of progressed that way. But then people sort of got into the idea and the concept of let's build a financial ecosystem. Let's build a financial structure and all the different things that you need in a finance industry, whether it's lending, borrowing, swapping, exchanges, people doing stuff on credit in various ways. Like there's a lot of different things that constitute a financial system more than just holding a thing and hoping number go up. So, DeFi, I think, has been through a cycle at least where things really went up really high, and then certainly with FTX fiasco and that sort of thing, it's not been good news. But I guess how's that? I mean, you've seen it as well, building for the last 2 years. How has that maybe impacted at all, or has it impacted what you guys have been building or developing, or interest, or how's this sort of weathering the bear market been for you guys?
Yeah, that's another great question. So we actually launched a novel designed to existing AMMs called single-sided liquidity pools. So effectively, users can deposit a single asset rather than the traditional method of depositing two assets, and thus earn sustainable yield with little to no impermanent loss, as well as a more capital efficient way to actually LP. And this product, we launched that, I think, a month or two before that collapse happened. And the product was affected because we had a Bitcoin pool, which was backed by FTX because it was solid BTC. So it was during that fiasco. And I think the ETH pool was also solid ETH at the time before Wormhole and Jump effectively released, stable ETH. So it was during that time and the product was affected. So yeah, that was a little discouraging to us. However, through that, we learned to build additional parameters, including volatility, adding asset weights in the pools, etc., to further prevent something like this in the future. If there is another black swan event where all of a sudden, an asset is no longer backed or no longer holds par, etc. So it led us to prepare for that and, build the next iteration of the product with that in mind. So in some ways, it made the product more robust, and V2 of that design will be, released later this month. So we're very excited to relaunch that product. And then DeFi as a whole, myself also love DeFi. It's a reason I got into crypto. It's also the reason that we're building on Solana because, as you mentioned, Solana, with low fees, high throughput, and the ability to have higher compute on chain, makes Solana the best place to build these DeFi products. And for us, we have a perpetual DEX exchange, so this uses an order book, and not many blockchains can support order books. And at the very least, the fees would be quite excessive if they were doing everything on chain. So some of them have gone with the off-chain approach, which is fine, right? But for us, we wanted it to be a completely transparent product where users could self-verify all on-chain activity. They know where their funds are. They know how the liquidation engine works, etc. So for us, we really thought Solana is the best place for DeFi. And circling back to your question on what are my thoughts today. Well, it does seem that there is now this movement to propel DeFi forward again on Solana. So we're seeing different projects come up with rewards point systems, essentially ways to gamify DeFi again, in the same way NFT communities have been able to leverage their communities. So that's a novel take. Us as well. We also are currently building out a gamified rewards system. So we're going to have a rewards program where, if you stake, the native token, you'll actually earn a percentage of the overall platform fees. So that, is also to just accrue, token value, and also just build trust with users. And then we're also just going to have a general weekly or bi-weekly giveaway system where, based on user activity, they'll get points, and those points can go towards additional tickets for the giveaway. So we're going to be employing a few different strategies that some other projects have also attempted or tried, but just ways to gamify and push on-chain activity in DeFi again. Because I think both of us we're DeFi native people, And we want DeFi summer again, right? So however we can help with that, definitely we're going to do our best. But we do see other teams pushing this forward and leading the initiative. So really excited overall with how things have been going, especially in the Solana ecosystem, because I've definitely seen that founders and teams like to work together, and there's a lot more collaboration. And it's not as competitive. I mean, of course, we're all businesses. We're trying to compete for revenue, but there are other ways to go about it than just head on competing. So it's great to see that everyone's like working together, because I think we really need it post all the drama that has happened over the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's about growing the pie, right? And I think everyone sort of understands that you can focus on trying to like just target the Solana community, but ultimately the actual prize is way bigger out there. There was a tweet I was talking about the other day, I think, where it was like the amount of people using DeFi is something like less than 0.5% of centralized exchange users, something like that. So really, if we're looking at like users and TVL for DeFi, like there is a really big pie out there. But I was really curious, you were talking about robustness and how a bear market sort of created the conditions for you to improve the product and essentially make it better and more robust and that sort of thing. So would it be right in saying that, I guess, the bear market has increased the quality of DeFi products on Solana? It might not just be for you guys, but it might be in general. Because I think my general take has been that Solana sort of started with having seen what worked on Ethereum already in the DeFi space. So it already kind of had like the DeFi 2.0 kind of thing going on. Maybe we're on 3.0 right now because people are rebuilding or improving a lot of the different protocols that have already existed for a few years. So I guess what's your take on the ecosystem in general and their ability to innovate over the last year or two? Has there been innovation? Because a lot of people will say, oh, DeFi, not much has happened, blah, blah, blah. But has things actually changed in the DeFi ecosystem, particularly on Solana, but elsewhere in the last year or so?
Yeah, that's another great question. So I guess I'll come full circle with this question like last time. I guess when we were initially building and everyone was still in the midst of the bull run, everyone was really just pushing products and just trying to ship, because at the time everyone was trying to release things quickly. So it's really just about getting people to connect wallet, to deploy some capital, and start using the products, farming, etc., all the different activities that we were all de-chaining into back then.
I don't know if that will return as well. I don't know what your thoughts are, but like the whole like printing coins at 1,000,000% APY, because now there's a million different perp markets. So it's like someone will spin up a perp market for whatever's a big farm and then hedge it and then gigarect.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's a part of it too, though, right? It's evolution in the space, right? So yeah, first you have like farming, and then got more sophisticated people that started to take perp positions, etc., the tokens. So yeah, I guess there's probably just part of the evolution. But yeah, just on that take, I think at the time it was also difficult for teams to build really robust products, like you mentioned. Even for us, like we wanted to build this product, single-sided liquidity, but it ended up taking about a year. So in the meantime, we experimented and released a few other products beforehand, and they were a bit more primitive and a bit easier. But just something to get going in the time, because it honestly takes a long time to build a really strong DeFi product. You also have to make sure it's a secure product, potentially get it audited. That takes time. Do a beta release, make sure everything's working on chain as expected. So there's a lot to go into when actually building a DeFi product versus like maybe like an NFT community, right? Like, you can launch a collection and all you really have to do is just build, like a few products afterwards and just engage the community. But with us, it's like, it's nonstop. You have to worry about, are people, gonna, get the Anchor IDL and look for exploits? Are, people just going to either try to, check if the front end is available, if there's any exposed tokens or, S3 buckets, etc. So there's different ways that someone can attack a DeFi product directly. And for that reason, us, specifically, and I'm sure other teams as well, we wanted to make sure that if we launch something or release something, that it's safe, that user funds are not at risk, because especially in this space, it's really hard to build trust, and it's almost impossible to regain it if there is an exploit. A few teams have been lucky to being given second chances because they were, open and transparent from the beginning with development, and people understand, especially other devs understand that, we're startups, we're small teams, everyone's working overtime. Every now and then, you can overlook a line of code or something, everyone's tired, right? So it's very difficult. And also it sometimes requires someone else to, put eyes on and confirm, that everything's going as it should. So there's a lot more involved. And I think that probably leads to, why it takes a bit longer. But getting back to your answer, like, I think a bear market is great for DeFi in terms of product building and in terms of like releasing items, because a lot of DeFi products you can't just release right away. Usually you'll have, one or two iterations, and some of that will take customer feedback or user feedback. Like, people might, want, an enhancement. They might want something that simplifies the process. So it's actually sometimes great to be able to build in stages. And, right now in the bear market, we're also able to see which teams are here for the long haul, which teams are actually building long term, because as you know, like during the bull run, there's probably 20 or 30 different projects we can name off the top of our head. And now, that list has shrunk quite a few, right? And I think there will be some, advantage to that, because the rest of us that have continued to build are going to have a very solid product that when users return or, we get activity again, who knows if it'll be the same degen level activity that we saw, hard to speculate on that. But whenever we do, see the next inflow of users, for them to now see these very polished products where, they may be completely mobile friendly, maybe even have an app, maybe have Saga support or et cetera. So now there's a wider set of users that can even interact with these applications. Maybe down the line, Apple and Play Store enable like blockchain wallets, and all this other stuff that, is happening slowly, but maybe it just onboards users that way. And then all they really have to do is just connect to our apps. And now we have this huge runway effectively compared to other products where they're going to need to get teams, build great UI, iterate again, where, they can just connect to our apps and start, and get going. Because at the end of the day, like, that's going to be quite difficult to build that retention. And as we know already that, even for ourselves, like, we're probably only going to use 5 protocols or projects on a regular basis, right? It's just hard to trust so many projects. A lot of them do similar things. So it's unnecessary to provide liquidity in like 3 separate places if the APYs are similar, given like protocol risk, et cetera. So yeah, I think the bear market can be great if the teams can stay focused and continue to build, because I think whoever makes it on the other side will, have some benefit.
Absolutely. Now, I think for people listening to this, the key point here is about the quality. And that's why I have a lot of respect for teams like you guys and other guys that are building during a bear market. DeFi is not a simple thing, right? You're constantly, you're going to bed at night thinking, man, has somebody found the IDLs and found an exploit? Is there some sort of way that, I'm not thinking about it correctly? I've looked over it 100 times, but maybe the 101st finds something, right? Or is there an economic attack that can happen, which is like a different type of attack vector? We saw that with Mango and others on Ethereum as well. So I think there's a lot of respect there in the ecosystem for the people that are still building during the bear market. But sort of rounding that corner now, we have FTX that's almost, well, I was going to say a year behind us, but it's actually not a year yet. But look, it feels like a year. Like 3 days feels like a year in crypto. But a lot of people are talking about, especially with the ETF and these different things are heating up again, that DeFi is maybe having a bit of a resurgence. Perhaps this is DeFi 3.0. Perhaps this is DeFi summer again. What are some of the things which I guess you're excited, or you guys, you've mentioned the single staking, and I think you've got a couple of other really cool things, maybe like leaderboards and points you're mentioning as well. What do you think is important to get right when the users come back? Is it providing more features for a product? Is it giving them more financial products, different types of things? We saw different call option stuff a while back that kind of faded out. Should that come back? Like, I don't know. What should the next bull run feature for this DeFi 3.0 narrative?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it's actually going to be focused around retention and, actually providing utility and incentives to the users themselves. So I think when the users do come back, I think they're going to look at, these different protocols and see like, where will I benefit the most? Like, of course I can trade perps with us, Mango, Drift, Zeta, etc. But where will I actually benefit the most? Like where are the lowest spreads? Do any of these protocols have like referral programs or rebates or loyalty programs, etc. Right? In the same way with TradFi or Web2, we have experience with credit card points, etc. Like we're more likely to use a certain card if we know we're gonna receive additional rewards. So that same model, how can we bring that to Web3 into this space? And I think that's actually going to stand out, because once you have customers competing for those loyalty points or they now can attribute value to it, I think they'll be more likely to come back and or share it with their friends and and just interact with that protocol, and then discover others. Like, hey, maybe they wanted to do something that isn't offered by us. Maybe it's offered by you guys or another project. Can they explore and see that, hey, like our teams are friendly with each other. We've done stuff. So if you trust GooseFX, of course you can trust Step and vice versa. So then there can be this like whole ecosystem that, people are building these products, and then it can just, end up in a way where it's net positive for all parties involved, because I think just bolstering on-chain activity should be the goal. A project that we're working on an integration with is BuddyLink. So they're currently building like an on-chain referral program. And the aim is to also just have like a network of projects within that system. So other projects can collaborate and users can see that, hey, like I'm already using this other protocol. They seem to have this program. How can I, now involve myself and or join? And now they discover something that they didn't know about.
What do they do? What's BuddyLink? Like, is it a referral program on chain kind of thing? No,
Exactly.
I'm curious. That's interesting.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with Laddercaster and the Ladder Lab team, they also created this product, BuddyLink. It's essentially an on-chain referral program where different teams can work with them and they can get featured kind of like in that marketplace, and different teams can have different incentives, and users can go to this one portal, and identify, different projects that they could potentially get a link for and or, earn rewards for. So it's just like building that ecosystem tool. So yeah, it's a great product. You guys should definitely speak with them as well and work on that integration too. Yeah, it's great.
I like that as a thing. Like, I think discovery is an important thing for DeFi, right? Where maybe it's people go to a marketplace to find the different apps, but often if I'm, say, new to the Solana ecosystem, or maybe I'm a DeFi degen on some other chain, and I'm like, cool, where are the AMMs? Where are the perp protocols? They don't know on day one. So where do they actually go? And I think that's a big thing for onboarding new users, is how do you get that exposure for people? So I guess, how have you guys been thinking about exposure for Goose? Like maybe historically and then in future, certainly with the referrals. We know referrals work. BitMEX has been doing referrals for how many years, and everyone loved shilling that back in the day. And I think Binance and everyone has them now. But like how have things worked for you guys to onboard new users essentially, or get yourselves known? Is it a Twitter presence? Is it something else? What are some of the tools?
Yeah, that's another great question. So, in the first year, we did a lot of just, in-person marketing. We attended a lot of the events, met a lot of the different teams, collaborated through those means. The reason for that at that time was, we still hadn't built out some of the products, just given it took a little longer than expected as well. But recently, we're working with Solana Accelerator. We're trying to work, more with universities and institutions, et cetera, to actually just get the product and also get education tools in people's hands, so that they can, start from wallet creation and connecting wallets and, just performing like on-chain activities and trying different things out. So for one thing, for perps, we noticed that there isn't really like paper trading, on chain or on Solana or other chains, at least from what we've seen. And this is something that's quite common in the Web2 space. If you wanted to open up like a trading or brokerage account, there's usually paper trading where you can, use fake money, just test some strategies out or see how you would perform, or just test how the product works itself before, deploying real capital. So we thought it would be a great idea for us to, launch paper trading for perps, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are curious about trading, and right now with the prices so volatile, people probably think like, hey, like what would have happened if I went long, during the last dip, and sold today, etc. So we thought that would be really cool, and also just a way for people to then like test out the platform and try it out. Like, do they like, how everything is designed? Do they have any requests? Are there any additional order types or features that they would like to see? So we think it would just be a great way to just get more eyes on. So that's something that we're also targeting just from an education perspective. And then of course, we're having a weekly Twitter space. So happy to host you guys as well. And then just trying to involve ourselves more with the ecosystem itself. You did mention that there's currently not like a great marketplace where people can find all the projects in the different categories. So that's something that's missing. We work with the Backpack team. They're currently working on this solution for in-wallet. I think Saga is also building like the dApp store. So I think there's some initiatives that are being taken. And we have an XNFT. We're also eventually going to build out a Saga app. So we're going to be doing our best to involve ourselves with those launches and to provide additional ways for users to find the platform. But yeah, just overall, we're just trying to just try different marketing approaches and just find the users.
Yeah, I like that idea of paper trading, and leaderboards as well. You mentioned people love seeing themselves, and also they'll love sharing that as well. And that's something that we're trying to get better at, is being able to make more things shareable, especially if they have a good trade, they want to talk about it. And I think, a lot of the centralized exchanges have done that for quite a while, is where you can tweet out what's your P&L or something like that. So yeah, really cool to see that happening. The points as well, maybe a little bit of a breakdown with that. So this is it's like a rewards point for using certain products. Is this applied to the perps, the swaps, or what is it, everything?
Sure, yeah. I can get into that. Yeah, so there's actually 3 programs for users to actually earn rewards that we're going to be releasing. So one is the Buddy Link integration I mentioned. So that's going to be like on-chain referral links for either perp trading or NFT trading, etc. So that'll be for the different features. We're also introducing a leaderboard. So there'll be leaderboards for perps as well as an NFT aggregator, and users based on what interactions they do. So providing liquidity by setting limit orders, filling orders, by executing trades, generating a certain amount of volume, etc. They're going to receive points, and we're going to be outlining, how to earn points, etc. In the upcoming week as we release the leaderboard. So you'll learn like how to actually maximize points and earn the most points. And that will be in conjunction with the giveaway. So there'll be either weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the feature set, prizes that can be earned by, all the users that participate. So how many, points they earn, as well as a separate prize for like the top 3 for that period. So that will be the second giveaway system. And then the third is actually a reward system. So this is more to accrue rewards for the actual token itself. So if you currently are a token holder, you can stake our native token, and all the fees that are generated through perps, the NFT aggregators, swaps, etc., a percentage, about half, so 50% of those fees will go towards those staking holders. So we're just trying to essentially target all type of users. So if you don't hold the token, but you want to use the platform, or maybe you have a great network, the referral system would be a great way for you to earn those USDC rewards. If you already hold the token, you've supported the project for a long time, this is a great way for you to earn additional rewards and benefit from sticking around with us and trusting us to take this long and build these products out. And then the third is for active traders. So if you are an active perp trader, an NFT trader, this is another place for you to now go where if you're already doing this activity, why not earn additional fees? Why not have this like kickback or participate in this giveaway, right? It's of no cost to you, so there'll be no reason to to not try it out at the very least. So that's the approach that we have with these three programs.
And the points are not the token, right? Or the points are not a token themselves.
Correct.
They're just used for the benefit of other areas of the platform, aka getting access to giveaways and other different benefits that might happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the points will essentially like the amount of points that are accrued, that will calculate how many tickets you get for that period's giveaway.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. So the token is the token. We're not giving away the token in any of these of these features. There's no like liquidity mining incentives. All of the rewards are paid either in USDC or the reward through the giveaway.
See, this is cool. This is something that didn't exist a few years ago. If we were talking about, the advancements of DeFi and different things that have happened, having a points reward system that's not token based, I mean, everyone went down the track of, hey, my token is the the reward system, which is great, but also there's often ways to game it, right? And we've spoken about, farms that mint a lot of coins and then, hedging and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see that there is a clear evolution there of using like rewards points for specific apps, and everyone might have their own rewards points, and that's great. Also, I like the comment you made about, working with the rest of the ecosystem and everyone being in the same sort of boat, because I think that, let's say there is a pricing differential between, say, one platform and another. It's actually an incentive for people to go to the mispriced platform, like, hey, the price is lower over there, right? I long over there, and then I short over there, right? So if people just used one platform, they wouldn't actually be exposed to that kind of, opportunities, right? So the proliferation of more opportunities and more platforms that people actually want to, trust and be on, the better. And also it helps everyone, like all boats rise kind of in that situation as well. As if someone does well, then the other ones often are at a different price to the ones that have a lot of liquidity, let's say, and therefore that might create arbitrage opportunities between them, and that's more deal flow for everyone. So very, very excited to see. So 2023, we're almost about halfway through now. I always end this on, what are some of the things which you guys are excited about for the rest of this year? And we've already spoken about a lot of them, to be honest. But is there anything else that you think is important, maybe for Solana in general? I think one thing I've noticed is the liquid staked tokens being a thing, and everyone being like, hey, man, I don't want to take too much risk in this bear market, so I'm just going to use the native staking token, and that's it. That's my yield. But what do you think is exciting in the ecosystem coming up for the rest of this year?
Yeah, that's another great question. Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that is probably coming out in the next year and a half. So that would include like Fire Dancer.
Yes.
That's really exciting, right?
That'll be interesting for you guys as well, right? Because more speed equals good for trading.
Exactly. And then, we can obviously, support more users, right? And just scale. So yeah, we're very excited for Fire Dancer. Ellipsis Labs, they've launched Phoenix.
Yeah.
So it's like an improvement to Open Book, which was the previous active order book on Solana. So we're really excited to see.
A Goose UI.
We're ready to work in Phoenix for Spot if we ever include Spot. Currently, we just offer the perps, but yeah, it'd be great to include them as well. Offer that to users. So yeah, very excited for Phoenix as well and all the updates they have. We're crossing our fingers to see if they're going to build out something that can support perps as well. So previously, Jerry also worked on like the asset agnostic order book. So we're going to see if he has the bandwidth to expand on that. So that would be exciting as well. And then just overall, like it's really great to see that a lot of teams are continuing to build and trying to propel DeFi forward. We've also seen a lot of activity on like crypto Twitter with like Mert and a few others that are really taking charge and tackling a lot of FUD in the space. So it's great to see that people are getting more educated on Solana and just what is out there and kind of like trying to like minimize a lot of like bad actors and things that just aren't incorrect for the sake of someone's bags. I mean, we've definitely seen that a lot over the last few years of crypto. So it's great to see that, users are being more educated. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff there. But yeah, I think with the release of Saga, I think that's also going to open the doors to mobile and more users. So overall, just really excited to see like how the ecosystem manage a scale, and also a lot of these updates. We've also seen interesting things like ZK and private transactions start to come out. So that'll be really interesting as well to see if it's possible to integrate private transactions with DeFi. Like it would be kind of cool to be able to trade perps anonymously, et cetera, right? So there's a lot of interesting products that can be created with the advancement in the space. And then from a dev side, as they continue to increase computation limits, we'll be able to build more complex products. So that'll be great from the dev side as well. But yeah, I guess it's just really exciting to see all the different teams building currently.
Man, actually, now that you put it that way, there is a lot of really cool things that are just around the corner. Please make a Phoenix spot order book. I've been saying this for a long time, but I think that's going to do really well. The whole concept of cranking with Serum and OpenBook, it sucks. We need a spot order book that doesn't have to have a crank. That'd be awesome. So, well, look, there's a lot of really exciting things. We've spoken a lot about what Goose is doing. Where can people find you? Where's the best place? Obviously, Twitter, maybe there's blogs, join the Discord. Shout out, where should people find out more about you guys?
Yeah, all of those are great. We have a Discord, we have a Twitter. We also have documentation on our app. So you just access our app at GooseFX.io, and you'll be able to find all the links there to the documentation, to the app itself, and all of our social links. So yeah, feel free to follow us there. Thanks.
Definitely. Go and check them out, guys. I love what they're doing. An example of a DeFi team building through DeFi winter to now back into DeFi summer. It's really cool to see. And all of the innovative things and the robustness as well that we've seen that has been built up over the last year or two is great to see. So we'll put links down below. And look, thank you so much for joining today, Harm. It's been a pleasure, and wish you all the best for 2023.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for hosting.
Awesome. Cheers.